Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Defiant Lawyers Show. We have some absolutely fascinating topics to discuss in today's show. First, we're going to be talking about the tragic event that happened to NFL player Damar Hamlin and just the critical moment and how the entire country and the NFL has coalesced around him. We're also going to be discussing the Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe debacle feud that came as a result of them discussing this tragedy. And last but certainly not least, we're going to be talking about the debacle surrounding newly elected Speaker Kevin McCarthy and what his speakership could mean for the Black community. Stay tuned right after this. Yo, what's up, everybody? This is attorney Chloe Corbett, also known as the Duchess of Justice. And with me, I have
Attorney Augustus Corbett, a.k.a. the Minister of Justice.
We are the Defiant Lawyers. We provide legal analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture to empower you to defy this unjust legal system. Dad, what's up? How are you doing today?
I am very good, Chloe. How about you?
I'm doing well. We're in 2023. It feels amazing to be in a new year, to be doing the things that we love. So this is just wonderful. I just can't believe how fast 2022 went as well. Can you?
I can't. In fact, we're already through the first week of 2023. So tighten your seatbelt because this is probably also going to move fast. And God knows what's going to happen in 2023. But whatever it is, we're ready for it.
We are. So everyone who's listening, and if you're listening to the podcast, if you're not listening live, this is actually season 2 of the Defiant Lawyers podcast and show. And we are also on episode 2. So if you have not gone back and watched episode 1 or listened to the episode, you can find it on our YouTube channel, or you can go to Spotify or Corbett and Corbett.com. Is it Corbett and Corbett or CorbettFirm.com?
CorbettFirm.com.
Podbean.CorbettFirm.com to
Oh,
listen
no,
to.
no, no. You're talking about the podcast, the
Yeah.
audio podcast? No, it is defiantlawyer.podbean.com.
There we go. Defiantlawyer.podbean.com. You can
Yes.
listen to us there, or you can go to Apple Music, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to podcasts. So
Yeah.
thank you again for joining us. We are excited to talk about the topics today. And the first topic of the hour, Dad, is talking about Damar Hamlin and what occurred to him at a football game, Monday Night Football, and just the coalition of support that has come behind him. Um, can you lead us into that? How did you first hear about this?
Well, I don't watch football, okay? So I wasn't watching the game, but I kept seeing on my social media channels that someone had gotten seriously injured in the Monday Night Football game. So, again, because I don't watch the game, I really didn't pay attention. But later on that night, I saw how serious it was. And so that's when I tuned in, and to my shock and to my horror, I understood that they had performed CPR on Damar for over 10 minutes. I knew then that it was real serious. And I've seen, and we've all seen football players get injured on the football field, and sometimes they are carted away and placed in an ambulance. So I'm used to seeing that, but 10 minutes of CPR, I knew that that was really, really serious. I knew that most likely there was a heart type issue, because why else would they need to restart his heart, basically? So I knew it was pretty serious once I tuned in.
Yeah, he's only in his second season and playing for the NFL. And for those of you all who don't know about this story, we're discussing Damar Hamlin. He is in his second season. He plays for the Buffalo Bills. He's a defensive end, I believe.
A defensive
Um,
back. I think he's a
a
cornerback.
cornerback. Okay, defensive back. He was making a
It,
tackle
let
and
me
almost
say, Chloe, if he's not a cornerback, I'm not certain, but if he's not a cornerback, then he's a safety.
okay.
One of the two.
So he was making a tackle for the defense for the Bills.
Yeah.
And unfortunately that tackle he fell to the ground and collapsed. And like you were saying, Dad, medics and doctors and officials from the NFL came on the field and performed CPR and did some type of other procedures like defibrillation, I believe is how you say it. I'm a lawyer, not a doctor, for a reason. But for whatever reason, it was very serious because he suffered a cardiac arrest and his heart stopped. I didn't watch the game live either, but I did see it on social media. I did see that it was trending on Twitter. And what got me is just even during the game, the amount of support that Damar was getting from his teammates, from the opposing side, from commentators, from other people on social media, and just how we were waiting with bated breath. I'm hoping that officials and the doctors would be able to resuscitate him and get his heart started back. So after that 10 minutes that they were working on him, you can see that emergency officials came in and took him away. And it was reported that he was still in critical condition then. I don't even think that he had come back into consciousness. In fact, I read an article that he just became conscious just yesterday, I believe, Dad. So this was extremely serious. And it was very hard to watch that entire time seeing the doctors working on him.
In fact, his uncle said that he actually died on the
Mm,
field. They lost him on the field. And they lost him again, according to his uncle, in the hospital or at the
mm.
hospital. So he literally passed away on the football field. And CPR was able to sustain him until they got there with the heavy equipment. The Bills reported that their trainer, one of their trainers, is credited with saving his life because he got to Damar first and immediately started administering CPR. And look, as a side note, everyone should be trained in CPR
Yeah.
because you never know when a loved one, a friend, family member, or someone in your vicinity is having some sort of life event, health event, heart event. That CPR could save their lives or at least sustain them until real help gets there. So everyone, first and foremost, let's again say everyone should take a CPR class and learn how to administer CPR. And I say that too because I was a Navy corpsman, a Navy medic, many years ago, and so we learned all that type of stuff. In fact, I was an EMS technician for a while, so I would go out we on the ambulance and provide emergency treatment for people. But again, that was many, many years ago. It was 40 years ago. Um,
Well,
but
you still use those skills on us, Dad. When we were younger, I remember we would get sick or hurt or something, and it felt like I was almost going to the doctor. The type of questions you would ask,
yeah, that's true.
to try to assess how bad it is you were
That's
injured or
true.
sick.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember a little of what I learned back then. But like you said, I'm a lawyer, not a doctor, for a reason. And But yeah, everybody should learn how to do CPR. A lot of times someone has some sort of an event like that and people are helpless. They don't know what to do. They call 911 and then they kind of stand there not knowing what actions to take. And those minutes are critical. Those minutes can be the difference between life and death or the person suffering some sort of irreversible trauma to the brain or heart or something. So again, I want to stress it. Everybody should learn how to take CPR.
Yes, it's important. It reportedly saved Damar's life. Um, so please go do that because just like my dad said, you never know when you could be in that situation or a loved one or you're out and about and you can save someone's life. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, he released an open letter, and I want to read a part of it, Dad.
Okay.
Um, he said, to our fans, Damar Hamlin's inspiring progress over the past few days has lifted the spirits of the entire NFL and football fans across the country. While his recovery is just beginning, we thank the NFL medical personnel and the medical staffs from both teams whose emergency action quite likely saved his life. We are also grateful to the professionals at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center who tended to Damar and continue to oversee his care. On behalf of the entire NFL, thank you, Roger Goodell. So that is what the NFL commissioner released in the aftermath of what happened to Damar. And one thing that I've been focused on too, Dad, is the inspiring story of how much support Damar's charity is receiving. So he started a charity um, and he was doing a toy drive for children where he's from. And prior to this incident, he there were not a lot of donations.
I
I
think there was
believe it
about
was
$2,500.
$2,500. But in the aftermath of what happened to Damar, the donation skyrocketed to over $8 million.
Yeah.
And that's donations big and large. That's from anonymous people who donated and support Damar, all the way up to the NFL coaches, fellow NFL players, football players, other athletes. So it was just so good to for me to see just the amount of support that Damar has been getting and the donations that he's gotten. I'm sure, once he realizes how much support his charity has seen, it's probably going to be a shock to him. I can only imagine. But there's so much good that can be done with his charity and with the donations. There has been a little controversy, and that involves Skip and Shannon.
Well, before we even go there, let me comment on Roger Goodell in the NFL before we talk about Skip and Shannon. Um, I am no fan of the NFL. I am not a fan of the National Football League and Roger Goodell and the 32 owners because it is a racist organization. 32, 31 white owners and one Arab owner of those teams, and the league is like 70% black. You only have a couple of black coaches. Again, no owners, maybe one or so general managers. So the message that's being sent is black guys can get out there and break their bodies and break their brains to make these white billionaires more money, but they can't own teams. They can't manage teams. And it was just recently that they could be in roles like quarterbacks. Okay. I mean, there have been black quarterbacks for quite some time. I can go all the way back to Doug Williams, the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. There was Warren Moon, Randy Cunningham. I could go on. There have been some black quarterbacks, but it took some time to break that barrier. And so when it comes to these positions that the team owners think takes brain power rather than brawn, they tend to not look to black guys. But the black guys can get out there and do what Damar did, give their bodies, sacrifice their bodies to the game. and their brains, but not own a team, not coach a team, not manage a team. And we also saw what the NFL did in response to Colin Kaepernick, how he just simply peacefully protested um, racial injustice. And for that, he has been blackballed. His career ended. And this guy had no issues off the field, clean record, clean cut guy, stand up guy. But just because he spoke out, just because he exercised his First Amendment right to kneel rather than stand in honor of the national anthem, which, by the way, supports slavery in its lyrics, okay? He was blackballed. His career has ended. And then throw on top of that this thing called race norming, where the NFL, a couple of years ago, let me quickly talk about this. A couple of years ago, some of the players who suffered CTE and other types of brain injuries sued the NFL, and they reached a settlement. But in order for a former retired player to get a part of the settlement, they had to be seen by doctors and had to take tests, brain tests, and that sort of thing. And the NFL imposed a policy on the doctors that essentially said, when it comes to black guys, if they show some sort of cognitive um, uh, disability or injury, then it's probably because black guys are already mentally and intellectually inferior. Now, you would think I'm making this up, but this is true. This was a true NFL policy as of a couple of years ago, where, again, they made the doctors say, right in their reports, to try to keep black guys from getting any of the settlement, the doctors were required to say, if a black guy had some sort of cognitive disability, let's say that was scale 10, on a level of 10, I'm making the numbers up. Well, the NFL said you got to drop that down to 8 or 7 or 6 because black people already have less cognitive abilities than everybody else. That's what the National Football League had as a part of their policies. That is classic racism. Classic. It sounds like the Tuskegee experiment or something. Mm-hmm. Sounds like something that dates back to slavery, Jim Crow. So I cannot support a league that is that racist. All right, so I don't care anything about what Roger Goodell and the NFL, what statement they gave. They probably would have went on and played that game anyway had the players said, no, we're not playing. Because what they're concerned about is not black bodies and black brains. The NFL is not concerned about that. The NFL is concerned about the bottom line. And that will lead us into Shannon and Skip, because Skip expressed just that.
Mm. In addition to all of that, Dad, too, we discussed in a show last year about the Brian Flores racial discrimination lawsuit against the NFL. We discussed that in detail and what he's alleging occurred, him being a black coach and all of the opportunities that were passed up over him, he's saying, due to his race. So in addition to all of that, we know how the NFL is. We know that the NFL uses black payers to make millions upon millions of dollars. And, that statement probably was a way to try to hone in on some of the goodwill that Damar and his fellow players have generated with trying to bring awareness to what happened to Damar. And that's the reason why we stopped watching football. We used to love watching football. It used to be a family tradition after church. We're going to watch some football. We're going to go eat and we're going to watch some football, period.
I've been
But
a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan for 40 years.
yep, yep. Don't like the Cowboys, still don't, even though we live in Dallas, but hey, we'll say that for later. But so we were huge NFL supporters. We did all of that, but I stood in solidarity with you and mom with boycotting the NFL because of the way that NFL treated Colin Kaepernick. I'm not going to give my viewership, my money, my time and energy to an organization that treats one of its players like that and shows that they don't care about black issues. So I have not watched football for many, many years either because of that reason. Um, so yeah,
Speaking of the Cowboys, we're not hating on the Cowboys, but there was a picture that floated
yeah,
recently showing Jerry Jones at the very racist event where black students were trying to desegregate Jerry's high school. He just happened to be out there. Just happened to be out there. Okay. Um, we could go on and on and on and on with all the racism that the NFL has shown over the years. And yeah, we stopped supporting it and we haven't looked back. And then when you take in account, Chloe, the damage that this sport does to these black guys, we know the Deion Sanders and the Jerry Rices and the other big name, very wealthy NFL players, but most don't leave the game like that. Many leave the game broke and
yep,
broken,
yep,
broke and broken. Okay, in terms of stuff like insurance. Um, I heard one NFL player, Hall of Famer, says 5 years after he retired from the league, Warren Sapp is his name. 5 years, he said 5 years after he retired, his insurance ended that he was getting through the NFL. And it was difficult for him to get more insurance because he had played national football and played in the National Football League for 13 years at a high level. So insurance companies knew that his body had been affected by all of that trauma. So yet the NFL kicked him to the curb. Okay, he couldn't even keep his insurance. So we know the big shot, big time NFL players, but many others leave the game again broke and broken.
yep, they do. So that's why so many of them were infuriated with what Skip Bayless tweeted out in regards to the game. For those, and I think we have a picture of them that we can put on the screen, but for those of you all who don't know, Skip Bayless is a sports commentator who co-hosts a show with Shannon Sharpe, a former NFL star. They co-host Undisputed. I watch it. I only watch it mainly because of Shannon Sharpe, not for Skip. But it's a very popular sports show where they provide sports commentary. And after Damar was, or during while Damar was injured, Skip tweeted out this. He said, "quote No doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of this game, but how? This late in the season, a game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, which suddenly seems so irrelevant." So basically, he was saying, disregard this man literally lost his life, died on the field, and they had to try to bring him back. He's in critical condition. But what about the season? What about the NFL? Um, and then he went on to say, and we have it up here, nothing is more important than that young man's health. That was the point of my last tweet. I'm sorry if that was misunderstood, but his health is all that matters. Again, everything else is irrelevant. I prayed for him and will continue to. So he tried to come back and he tried to make it right. And
Well, he said I watched the show the next day, and it was a show where Shannon Sharpe did not show up that day, and I heard come out of Skip's own mouth that his bosses called him and said, "Skip, they're going in on you about your tweet." And for For that reason, Skip then put that last tweet up. Okay? That's what he said. That's what he admitted from his own mouth. I heard it with my own two ears.
Wow.
So let's go back to that tweet. Let's go back to that tweet because the first tweet, no doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of this game. But how? That's what Skip was focused on. How are they going to postpone the rest of this game this late in the season? A game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome. Those were his thoughts. That's what he said. As Damar Hamlin laid on that field, lost his life, and it had to be resuscitated. As he laid out there fighting for every breath, as they feverishly fought to resuscitate him and bring him back to life, Skip, Tasteless, Classless, Bayless tweeted about the season and how this would affect the season. And so some say, and I've had some to say to me, yeah, but he said all of this now seems so irrelevant. Well, let me address that. After he said all that other stuff, then yeah, you're going to throw in something about it being relevant just to kind of cover what you know is going to be taken the very way you said it. So to me, he threw that in about it seeming irrelevant now, just to kind of make it not sound and look so bad. But why was that all that on his mind in the first place? Why was he thinking about the season? Why was he thinking about this, how this situation, this young man suffering this almost near death? In fact, it did take his life, but they resuscitated him. Why was Skip thinking about the game? Why? Well, in that same broadcast that I watched, where Shannon didn't show up, he said that he was thinking like a journalist and putting himself in the minds of the owners. That's what he said. Go listen to the tape. So he wasn't thinking about what millions of other people were thinking about, which is this young man's life. Forget the game, forget the season. What about this 24-year-old young man out there struggling for his life? That's not what Skip was thinking about. He was thinking about what the owners were thinking about. He was thinking like a journalist, not a human, not someone just concerned about the well-being of another individual. So the fact that he says that all that seems so irrelevant to me means nothing. And I would also say that it didn't seem irrelevant. It was irrelevant. The word seem, that is also very telling. It wasn't seemingly irrelevant. It was actually irrelevant because a life was on the line.
It shows where his priorities are. And he's supposed to be this political or this sports commenter for 20, 30 years, and you show you don't care about the players.
Well, Chloe, you
What
just made a good point. Let me just say,
Yeah.
Skip as a seasoned journalist does not just say things. He thinks about what he says. He's been in front of a camera for decades. So he said what he felt, what he thought, and what he wanted to say. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to throw that in.
No, that's true. What he tweeted first is what he felt. He cared more about the game than about Damar's life. Period. And
Period.
I like period. And I like that when Shannon Sharpe came on the show the next day on Wednesday, he brought it up. And they had a little bit of a on air feud or dispute. So Shannon went on Undisputed on Wednesday, and he said, quote, "I've never seen anybody have to be revived and fight for their life on the field." Skip tweeted something, and although I disagree with the tweet, and hopefully Skip would take it down, but I want it. And it was at this point where Skip immediately interrupted Shannon and said, quote, "I'm not going to take it down because I stand by what I tweeted." Just like we said, he stands by what he tweeted. He stands by caring more about the state of a football season versus what was happening to Damar, fighting for his life, losing his life, and then having to be resuscitated on the field. He said, quote, "Because I stand by what I tweeted." I mean, wow. To just come right out and say that and admit that and interrupt
Arrogantly.
your co-host when you could have showed some compassion and empathy, and again re-emphasize that of course you care about the players. So
Well, he also said that the people at Fox had no problem with what he said. To which Shannon said, "Well, apparently someone had a problem because you were told to address it." And Skip denied that. He contradicted himself. The day before, when he did the show himself, he said admittedly that the his boss gave him a call or conversated with him some way. Either called him. I can't remember if he called him or if he sent him an email or a text. I don't know. But they told him that he needed to address his tweet, and that's why he addressed it. So he contradicted himself. But let's say they didn't have a problem with what he said. In other words, let's take Skip at his word. I believe him. I believe the people at Fox probably felt the way he felt. Who cares about this young black man out on the field struggling for his life? What we care about is the season and the game and the bottom line. After all, this is Fox. This is Fox.
let's keep it real.
Let's keep it real. This is Fox. We know where Fox comes from. We know exactly where Fox, home of Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Jesse Waters, and Brett Baer, and Bill O'Reilly, and many others. We know where that crowd comes from. So it doesn't surprise me for Skip to say, my bosses had no issues with what I said, although it contradicted what he had said the day before, but I take him at his word. They, too, were only concerned about the season and the bottom line and so on, not that young man. I mean, that's just easy to believe because not only is that Fox, but this is America.
Yep.
And we know that the bodies and the minds of black people matter only to the degree that they can make money. We know that.
And it matters only to the degree that we stand up and we make ourselves matter, which is why the Black Lives Matter movement has been so important, which is why focusing on systemic racism and discrimination and what we do on this show is so important, because we have to make ourselves matter to larger American society. So that's why we're here. That's why we continue to focus on it. Some people may be saying, well, why are you all covering this? What does this have to do with you all's mission statement? It has everything to do with it,
Everything.
because it's a microcosm of the way that America views black people in this country.
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
we'll see what happens with I said Ship, with Skip and Shannon.
Well,
There has been some rumors. Okay.
Before we go, Shannon, I do want to put up something that Shannon said, because we have all witnessed Shannon we have all witnessed Skip disrespecting Shannon for the past at least couple of months. There was an episode, and by the way, we would be playing these clips, but we're concerned that we may get in some copyright issues with YouTube and or Fox. So we're taking the safe side. We've been flagged before. We don't want to get flagged again, and they shut us down. But so here's the tweet that Shannon sent out after his argument with Skip. Okay, and let's see. So he says, Shannon tweeted, "My big bruh just sent this to me. He doesn't show or share a lot of emotions with me. Over last month, he's sent me more text messages and voice messages than ever." And again, this is because they've been going back and forth, him and Skip. And his brother's name is Sterling, who is also a Hall of Famer football player, National Football League player. And Sterling said to his baby brother, he says, "I am so proud of the person you have become. You don't pick up or choose the stand you take them all. Barney, Mary Jo, Tatum, as well as Miss Kills would give you a standing ovation. Shannon, you are truly a special man." Now, here's another one. Let me address this before we go to this other one. And that is basically his big brother saying to him, "I have seen Skip disrespect you over the past couple of months, and you have handled it so well. And I, too, want to applaud Shannon for the way he has handled the disrespect that Skip has shown him." They got into a real big argument, maybe a month ago, over Tom Brady. I was looking at that. It's all over YouTube. Chloe, I'm sure you've seen it. Mm-hmm. And according to Skip, Shannon is jealous of Tom Brady because Tom Brady has been able to play for 45 years, and Shannon has only had to retire at 35 years. Shannon, a Hall of Famer like Tom Brady will be, but Shannon only 3 Super Bowls, whereas Tom Brady has 6 Super Bowls. And Skip threw all that up in Shannon's face, and Shannon was just really, really angry about it and exacerbated and took his glasses off at one point and took his glasses off trying to talk to Skip. And Skip said, "Put your glasses back on." I mean, put your glasses back on. It was almost like he said, "Put your glasses back on, boy. What you doing?" Just being very disrespectful. And this past week, after the Damar Hamlin situation, was no different. Skip didn't let up. He was being arrogant. And here you look at Shannon, this big, huge, muscular athlete who played football for many years, at least a decade. Skip never played and got more mouth, know more than everybody else about the game. And Skip has said other disrespectful things to other black athletes, okay? So, yeah, I'm going in on Skip today. I am.
Let's do it.
I'm going in on him because I have really grown to dislike this guy. He's an arrogant person, okay? He's an arrogant person. And Shannon could snap him in two. But he shows a lot of restraint. He shows himself to be a gentleman. And Shannon said that growing up, Chloe, he had a bad temper. And that's why his brother Sterling actually tweeted him and said, all these people would be so proud of you because they know what you would have done, years ago. And I'm glad he hasn't done that. I'm really glad he hasn't done that, no matter what Skip says, because, Skip is, first of all, he's an old guy. Skip's probably in his mid-70s. And that just wouldn't, because Shannon's this huge athlete. I mean, the
contrast between them is amazing.
It is. Skip ought to be glad and happy that Shannon is the gentleman that he is, the gentle giant that he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Skip always had a mouth. I remember he was on ESPN with Stephen, what's his name? Help me
Stephen A.
out.
Smith.
Yeah, Stephen A. Smith, and they will always go back at it. But I have to give it up for Shannon too, for standing up for himself, for showing restraint, for speaking his mind, for speaking up on behalf of athletes, especially black athletes. I agree with most of his takes. So he has been a testament to what can be done after you retire from the NFL and go into another career gracefully and still be relevant and make really good points. So I give it up for Shannon Sharpe. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, okay, Chloe, there is just one more tweet that Shannon sent out that I want to play, and then you can move us on to the next topic. This last tweet, Shannon tweeted, "Don't storm." Well, let's read the tweet beneath that because he was responding to this tweet. Unc, one more incident from Skip. In the hood, gonna storm y'all set on live TV. We got your back. 100, 100, 100. And Shannon said, "Don't storm the Fox lot like the Capitol." Now that was very insightful. This was January 6th. We're gonna talk about all that in just a second. He says, "I've got it under control and we're good. I absolutely appreciate the love and support I've been shown by the fans." So we got Shannon's back.
We do. We do. And what a contrast for that to be sent on January 6th when all of that was happening. And then we're moving into our next topic where Kevin McCarthy was trying to get the speakership position and all of this coming together all at once. This is America. That's all I can say, from sports to politics. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really, that's all you can say because January 6th, 2 years ago, was a
yep,
day in infamy. And for the people who inspired that to be back in power and electing the Speaker of the House, this guy of all people is just amazing. But go ahead, Chloe.
so Kevin McCarthy, wow. If you follow politics, if you follow news, if you've been on social media, you've probably heard his name. You've probably heard about the chaos that the United States House of Representatives was in as Kevin McCarthy was trying to get the votes from his party to become speaker of the House. We'll get into that in a little bit, but first we want to say, who is Kevin McCarthy? Who is he? He is a politician. He is now finally, after 15 votes, he's Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. He is from Southern California and he's a member of the Republican Party. He is a right winger, he's a white supremacist, and he loves Trump. And Trump apparently loves him because Trump endorsed Kevin McCarthy for this speakership. Before becoming speaker, he was the House minority leader of the Republican Party from 2019 to 2023. And then he was House majority leader from 2014 to 2019 under Speakers John Boehner and Paul Ryan. And by all accounts, he has been trying to get the speakership for a very long time. So he has groveled and graveled and conceded. And he was finally made Speaker of the House January 7th. What are your initial thoughts about Kevin McCarthy, Dad?
Well, um, he is not your typical GOP right winger, white supremacist. He is a suit wearing
Yeah.
uh, white supremacist. He's from Southern California. And I know everybody may think California is really liberal and progressive.
Not all
They're
parts at
not
all.
all parts of it, exactly. I think Kevin is from Bakersville, California. And yeah, I read that his parents were Democrats, and this is not an endorsement of Democrats. I'm not a Democrat or Republican, but his parents were Democrats, and I presume they were probably at least progressive. But Kevin took a different route. um, and so he's not, typically you're going to get those kind of racist, white supremacist folks. You're going to get those from the South, right? So you're typically not going to get that from the California politician. By the way, the last Speaker of the House was from San Francisco, California, and she couldn't have been more liberal than Nancy Pelosi. So again, he's not, probably it's probably the reason why it took him 15 votes to get the hardcore, hard fire breathing, blatant racist white supremacists to support him. But he is one of them. He's one of them. It's just that he would probably like to do his stuff a little more underhandedly. Okay? So he is what I would probably call a passive white supremacist, a passive racist. Just as racist, support all the racist policies, will be just as dangerous to black issues as any of the hardcore right-wingers, but can put a better face on it, which in my mind makes him even more dangerous.
Yeah, he's kind of smooth with it. He's kind of just like you said, the suit wearing. I'd rather deal with. I want to know who you are outright. I don't want to be dealing with the smooth racist. Tell me up front how you feel, so I can know how to proceed accordingly. But he made a lot of concessions to.
Let me say something to your credit about that. We had a trial, a family law trial, a few months ago, and Chloe did the trial, and in her voir dire, Chloe said, "I am something to the effect of a
I forgot
proud
about this. Yeah,
HBCU graduate and this and that." I mean, and we were in a very conservative county here in the DFW area, and so it's like, whoa, why is she starting out like that?
yep.
Well, here's why. Because we knew that statement out front would make all the bigots show themselves in response to that statement. And then we could strike them off the jury. And that's exactly what you did brilliantly. When you told me that's what you did, I was like, whoa, that was brilliant. I mean, that was brilliant. That was brilliant because they began to show themselves, didn't they?
They did. One guy, older white gentleman, because it was a case involving some race issues, and so I wanted to bring it out and ask people. That's our duty to our client. We need to get people on the jury who can give our client in our case a fair shot. So I mentioned that, and one of the potential jury members, he said, "Well, you're the one bringing up racism by telling us you went to a black school." I said, "Okay, thank you for your comment. Who else? Who
You're
else here
out.
out of these 50 people? Who else agrees with him? Please raise your hand."
Yeah, yeah.
Them not knowing, all of them who raised their hands and agreed with him, they weren't gonna get on my jury if I could help it. So that's what we deal with, even in the legal system. I forgot about that, Dad. I'm glad you reminded me of that. That's why I'd rather know up front how you feel. Let me know, please. Please be
That
upfront
was
with
a
it.
that was a brilliant move. I just wanted to throw that in there. So you're
Yes.
so right. Just go ahead and just show yourself. And if you're sitting in there hiding, because one of the worst things you can do when you're having a jury trial is let those kind of folks slip up on your jury, and
Yep.
and and because they tend to be the most vocal ones back in the deliberating room, um, but they sat in their incognito while you were doing voir dire because you didn't just deal with the issue of race right straight up. And every time I pick a jury, I always bring up the issue of race.
It's
Always.
especially if our client is black. We have
Yes,
to.
you have to. Just to get folks to come out. I need you to talk about this. I need you to show me your heart, because if you got some stuff in your heart about our client, we need to know that. And if you try to hide, I'm going to bring the issue up myself and put it in your lap. So Chloe, that was brilliant. But Kevin McCarthy is not that kind of guy. You would definitely have to make him come on out with the truth and just go ahead and tell it. Now, Chloe, what I'd like to do right here is, because folks might be like, why are you all talking about Kevin McCarthy? Well, for the obvious reason that we just gave you. The guy is a right-winger. He's a white supremacist. He's in control of the United States House. But let's, Chloe, talk about briefly the power of the Speaker of the House.
Yeah. So the Speaker of the House is a position that was created. It's created by the Constitution. I think it's Article 2, Section 2, perhaps. And what he or she does is they act as the leader of the United States House of Representatives. So, just to take it back a little bit, maybe go back to government. The federal government is made of three branches of government. You have the judiciary, which is the United States Supreme Court. You have the executive branch, which is the president and all of their cabinet members. And then you have the legislative branch, which is the United States Congress. The United States Congress is tasked with creating laws and writing legislation. And it is divided up into two chambers. One chamber is the United States Senate. The other chamber is the United States House of Representatives. And there's over 500 members of representatives who represent various districts in states across the country. So the Speaker of the House is the leader of the House of Representatives. And he or she is responsible for administering the oath of office to the members of the United States House of Representatives, for giving members permission to speak on the House floor.
Stop there. Stop there.
Yeah.
So he can actually prevent members of the House from speaking on the House floor. That's power.
Yep. That's because a lot of times members giving speeches on the floor can get legislation passed, can convince other members to vote or agree with the member who's speaking on the floor, can get their message out to the country. Oftentimes you see, if you watch clips on YouTube or C-SPAN or the news, you'll see some congressman or woman giving a speech on the floor. And so if a person controls who can give speeches on the floor, they control what narrative was put out from the House of Representatives. They control what information we get as citizens about what's going on in the House. So it's a lot of power. It is a lot of power. And that's why Speaker McCarthy was trying to and groveling so hard to get this, because he knows how much power it holds.
Now, Chloe, both you and I have made some Freudian slips and things that we've said that your mother has texted me and said we need to go back and correct these things. You all, listen, you get to talking and speaking and your mouth gets ahead of your brain, okay? So, or we just may make an error, but it's important that you understand we want to give you accurate information. So, I said earlier that Sterling Sharpe, Shannon's bigger brother, was a Hall of Famer, NFL player. Well, he actually got injured and never was inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I stand to be corrected on that. And Chloe, you were speaking so fast. You said that there were 500 House of Representative members, when in actuality there are 435 House of Representative members and 100 senators, which is a total of 535 Congress people. Okay? So thank you, sweetheart, for keeping us, because our mouths get to speaking, quicker than our minds. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes, thank you. I haven't taken a civic class in a minute, but so the Speaker of the House has a lot of power. I think that's what we were getting at.
Yes. And, well, so let's go ahead. So he can shut down debate on the floor, he or she.
Yep.
He or she designate members to serve as Speaker pro tem. He or she can count and declare all votes. He or she appoint members to committees. Very important position. He or she can send bills to committees. He or she sign bills and resolutions that pass in the House. And maybe the biggest one, the Speaker is the third person in line to become president if something were to happen to the president. So if something happened to Joe Biden, first in line would be Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris. Next would be Kevin McCarthy. So this is a very, very, very powerful position in our government. And with all this power, and with him being a right winger for the next 2 years, you can fully expect him and his compatriots to fight every measure put forth to empower African Americans. You can fully expect it. It's going to happen. For the next 2 years, he will use his power to ensure that African Americans make no further progress whatsoever. And that's the reason why we are talking to you about Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, in a speech that he gave once he finally was elected to the position, he talked about what his agenda is for the United States House of Representatives. And one of the things he said, um, I don't know what it is. In jest, he said that he wants to combat the woke agenda in schools, something to that effect. I'll look for the exact quote. Um, Obviously, that's targeted towards Black people. That's targeted towards not teaching accurate history about what has gone on in this country to our children. That's targeted towards denying systemic racism that we've suffered and that continues to be present in this country. So he's shown what his cards are. He's shown what his agenda is, and so we can expect legislation that comes out to distract from all of the issues that are continuing to affect the Black community.
Yeah, and that whole woke thing, that really teased me off, because woke doesn't mean anything that they have made it to mean, nor
Yep.
does critical race theory.
Yep.
They have such power over society, American society, the news media and so many other places, that they can just take a word that we have used for years and completely redefine the word.
Yep.
And that's what they're doing with woke. Because the word woke simply means, has always meant for us African Americans to be conscious and aware of racism and to be doing our part to overcome it. That's what the word woke has meant for a century. A century. Yet they've taken it, completely redefined it nefariously, and now are disseminating misinformation about what the word means. And so the average Joe, Southern, white redneck now uses the word woke based on the definition that he or she gets from Fox News and people like Kevin McCarthy. Really makes my blood boil.
Yeah, me too. Now there's this whole anti woke movement that the Republicans and right wingers have come up with. And what they're doing is they're targeting school boards and school officials in public libraries with banning books, with banning information, with banning teachers from properly teaching what the history of racism in this country. Because it by doing that, if you don't learn from the past, how can we address the future? And how can we address all of the systemic racism and discrimination that we've suffered? So that's what his agenda is, and he made it clear in his speech that that's what he's intending on doing.
That's why we're covering him today. Okay. Now, Chloe, let's talk about the Freedom Caucus, which he is beholden to. Okay. Which Kevin McCarthy is beholden to a bloc in the House of Representatives, a group called the Freedom Caucus. And here are some of their members. All right. I can't name them all, but these are Kevin McCarthy is a right winger to the bone. These guys and women are even further to the right than he is. And oh, by the way, look at the person on the third row, the bottom row, to your left. That's an African American guy from Florida. And he is all a part of that group, Byron Donalds. He's all a part of the most racist, white supremacist group in Congress. Black guy. And Kevin McCarthy, it took him 15 votes to become the speaker because that crowd of people forced him to make concessions so that they could control him. And so not only will he use his position and power to go after any sort of an agenda of black progress, but they will force him to do things that makes even that seem gentle. These are all Trump-loving people. Okay, they adore Trump, and we know how white supremacist Trump is. Okay? So they are hard right. They're just about every one of them are 2020 election deniers. They are Freedom Caucus members, and nearly every one of them, including that black guy, was endorsed by Donald Trump.
Mm. And it, from the outside looking in, it looks like Speaker McCarthy's quest to become Speaker of the House, and get these concessions. He's really lowered his ability to do anything as Speaker. If you know you owe all of these concessions and you owe so much to these hardliners, where's your party? Where's your authority coming from? It,
Right.
it it doesn't seem wise to have done it that way.
That's right.
And I know one change, one concession that a lot of members of the House are concerned about is which would empower a single lawmaker to launch the process of ousting the speaker. So that's a change. That's one thing that he conceded to. One single person, member of Congress, can start the process of changing the speaker or ousting the speaker. So if that's the case, if one of these Freedom Caucus members doesn't like what Speaker Speaker McCarthy is doing, then they can start the process of ousting him and potentially putting someone else in. So obviously, that is going to make Speaker McCarthy beholden to these Freedom Caucus members. I'm sure they'll dangle that over him. Well, we're going to get you ousted. We're going to get someone else in. Blah, X, Y, and Z. That's
Well,
why Americans should be concerned, especially Black Americans.
especially Black Americans. Let's bring it home. Let's suppose one of those Freedom Caucus members wanted to do something in their district, like name the new elementary school in honor of a local KKK member. And let's say Kevin McCarthy is like, well, you know what? I think, I don't have a problem with it, but I believe it'll cause us a lot of issues, so I'm going to oppose that. Well, any member, like Chloe said, would be able to say, if you don't support this, I'm going to challenge your position as Speaker. So you better get on board. And oh, by the way, Donald Trump is on board with this as well. So if you don't want me to challenge you in the Freedom Caucus and Trump out there talking about you, you better support this, and so that we can get this school named in support of this KKK member. Or we could think of many, many other examples of these people back in their districts, or even some national initiatives. The U.S. House of Representatives have approved the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act several times. They couldn't get it through the Senate. Well, now these people can stop it completely. Even if Kevin McCarthy and some of his adherents wanted to support some part of it, well, that Freedom Caucus could say, no, you don't support any of it. Otherwise, we're going to come at you. Remember, you agreed that any one of us could challenge you at any given time for your speakership. So you are not to support that, or you are to support this, or you better not say that, or you better say that. Kevin McCarthy gave away so much power getting this position that the Freedom Caucus members, and by the way, Donald Trump basically controls the House. That's him and Matt Gaetz. They basically control the House now through Kevin McCarthy.
That's why elections have consequences. The midterm elections in November of last year, the Republicans were able to eke out a very, very slight majority in the House, which then allowed McCarthy to um, run for this position and ultimately end up becoming Speaker. This is why elections have consequences. This is why we must get out the vote and make sure we're educated and look at these politicians' stances on how they will affect us, affect the Black community, and what they believe. So elections do have consequences. Now, to me, it does show that the GOP, their party is it's in a little disarray. I mean, it took you 15 votes to get here, of which some of the Freedom Caucus members who were opposed to him only voted present. So it's not like they agree with him; they voted present. Is this what your term is going to look like, Speaker McCarthy? Disarray, conceding to the fringe of your party?
Right.
This should be interesting. Let's see.
That's right. That's where we are. That's exactly where we are. You said it perfectly. He's going to have to concede to the fringes of, and he's bad enough. Okay, McCarthy is bad enough by himself. He doesn't need help to be bad for the Black community. But when he has to concede to the farthest right wingers in order to maintain his speakership, That's pretty bad. And by the way, that crowd of people, as I said earlier, was crowned with the speakership and given very powerful committee uh, leadership roles on January 6th.
Mm.
The
Wow.
day, 2 years to the day, when their constituents attacked the Capitol building, which resulted in many lives lost, including law enforcement. What an irony. And as you said, Chloe, elections have consequences. What was American thinking? What was America thinking? Or was it that a lot of people who should have voted didn't vote? And let me just say this. I heard a gentleman make a statement who has a growing platform. Many of you know him. His name is Omar Johnson, Dr. Omar Johnson. And admittedly, he and I agree on a few things. We actually do. I am an avid Pan Africanist and have been so for 40 years, longer than he has. So yeah, there are many things that he and I agree on, but his attack on the church and him saying, I heard him say on the Breakfast Club that black people basically shouldn't vote because whether the Democrats are in office or the Republicans are in office, it doesn't matter for black people. I find that so hard to hear coming out of his mouth when he is credentialed. He's a black child psychologist, has 4 degrees, I believe. I find it amazing that he would say that when it is very obvious in this nation voting has tremendous implications for people. It is the reason why our forefathers literally gave their lives to be able to vote. Literally, they literally gave their lives to register people to vote. They got beat, they got killed, they got shot, they got attacked, churches burned down, homes burned down, and I'm talking after slavery, for the right to vote. There is even an amendment to the Constitution, the 15th Amendment, to protect. It's a Reconstruction Amendment. The abolitionists thought it so important to protect the rights of African Americans to vote. They had the Constitution amended, and then to give that teeth, they enacted the Voting Rights Act, of which the conservatives have been attacking for decades because they all understand the importance of voting. Yet Dr. Omar Johnson is on the record saying to millions of people that black folks, it doesn't matter if black folks vote because, whether Democrats are in office or Republicans are in office, it doesn't matter. Well, Kevin McCarthy is now Speaker of the House. There are 6 very, very right-wing conservatives on the U.S. Supreme Court because of an election. Donald Trump became the president because of voting. Oh my God, I could go on for days explaining the importance of voting. I could go on for days and days. So I'm flabbergasted that he's saying such a thing, although I agree with him on other stuff.
Yeah, he's saying what I've heard other black people say as well. Why should we vote? Our votes don't matter. Things are going to happen the way they're going to happen. But for someone of his stature and who has a platform to say that, it's dangerous. Um, because, once we come together as a community, dad, and know how much power we truly have, whether it be in the political sense, whether it be with the business sense, the spiritual sense, we would be unstoppable. But we have to realize that ourselves, and we have to come together and make changes in all of those aspects. And voting, showing our force that way, will force this country to respect us, just like what happened in the in the 50s, in the 60s. We forced them. We took our money and we forced changes and we forced equality, and that's something that we still have to do. And one of the major ways is with our voting power as well. So I hope that everyone listening today to us realizes that. This is why we talk about this in almost every show. Anytime we talk about politics, we're talking about it from the aspect of being black and what will impact the black community and seeking justice on behalf of the black community. That's why we address these political topics, not because we're partisan either way, not because we are Republican or Democrat, but because we want to make sure that we're a voice for the black community and speaking up on behalf of the black community. And speaking of the black community, that there was some good news that came out of um, this week. Hakeem Jeffries, Representative Jeffries,
Yes.
is the first black leader in the United States House of Representatives.
Yes.
He is the House Minority Leader. He's the leader of the Democrats. And if the Democrats had won slightly more, he very may well have been the speaker. So that is some good news that came out of all of this. Um, Representative Jeffries, he's from New York. He was kind of handpicked by Nancy Pelosi after she stepped down as leader of the Democrats, for him to lead the Democrats. So that's very big. And he gave a speech as well that I thought was very good.
Yeah, I thank you for mentioning him. I forgot to mention Hakeem Jeffries. Um, but yeah, it is a great thing that Hakeem is minority leader. I think it's called. If not, I'm sure your mom gonna send me a text correcting me here in just a minute. But I think minority leader may be for the Senate, but he is the leader of the Democrat House of Representative members. So he's not speaker, but he's their leader. And when they were voting, he was really a few votes shy of becoming speaker.
Yeah.
Had just a couple of the Republicans voted for him, he could have become speaker, the first black speaker. And he is the first black leader of the House of Representatives. That is amazing. Even during Reconstruction, that 10-year period where a lot of blacks were elected to Congress, I don't think any of them had become speaker, leader, even of the minority conference. So yeah, thanks for mentioning him. He's there because of voting, because of people voting. Um, if you want to talk about the importance of voting, look on the local level, and you know when we vote, we get district attorneys, for example, that are uh, progressive. We get sheriffs that are at least responsive and sensitive to African American issues. We vote in legislators who pass laws that hopefully can give us, um, a chance at equality. We get appellate judges who hear our appeals cases that hopefully will be fair-minded toward African Americans. Well, conversely, if we don't vote, If we don't vote, we let them pack the courts with right wingers. We let them pack the DA's offices in our various states with right wingers. If we don't vote, we let them pack the legislatures with right wingers, sheriffs, right wingers. If we don't vote, it's just a nonsensical position to take. Everybody, um, we must vote. I do understand. I do understand this notion that whether Democrats or Republicans are in office, we still got to do what we got to do. I mean, we still got to fight. We still got to, insist on our rights and equality. I get that. I get it. I mean, the system, the country, is white supremacist. It's tilted in that direction, no matter who's in office. So yes, I agree. We have to push the Democrat Party to do right by us. We have to push the Republican Party to do right by us. But to just not participate is not the solution. That is not the solution at all.
At all. And I want to give a shout out to freshman Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who we
Yes,
know.
we know
She
personally.
was sworn in. She'll be starting her first term as a United States House of Representative, a Congresswoman. So shout out to her for winning her election. She took over the seat of Representative Eddie Bernice Johnson.
Mhm.
So shout outs to her. And
And
I don't
shout
think with
out to Jonathan Jackson.
Jonathan
Uh,
Jackson.
yes, Reverend Jesse Jackson's son, senior son. I went to college with Jonathan and his brother Jesse Jr. He was sworn in too. So shout out to him as well.
Yeah. And I don't know if we announced it up here, but Corbin and Corbett, our firm, we were nominated as one of the top black law firms here in Dallas. And Jasmine was honored at that event as well. So I wanted
Oh,
to make
really?
sure I shout out to her and she won. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. What a big, 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 big thing that was for we had no idea that
Yeah, we
people
did.
were going to had nominated us, and we were considered along with other law firms in the great big DFW area as one of the best law firms, nominated as the best black law firm in DFW. We didn't win, but the fact that we were nominated, we are really appreciative, and we are striving 2023 to get that award next year for real.
Yes. Yes.
All
We're
right,
gonna be
so
bitter.
go
hmm
ahead, Chloe. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say bigger and better in 2023. That's our motto.
Yes. All right, so we got a couple of comments here.
Okay.
Um, let's say Black says we aren't applying the tactics and strategies of the 50s and 60s. We are not the same people. Sacrifice is not part of the culture. I got to shout that out. I got to shout
Yeah.
that out. Black, I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. Um, yeah, our community apparently think that we have arrived and the fight is over and we're good to go. Uh, but that seems to be the sentiment. If Donald Trump didn't remind you in his Make America Great Again with all the support and the fact that he almost got reelected, 75, 80 million people voted for him, and all of them were trying to make America great again in their minds, which means put these black folk back in their place, okay? If that doesn't remind you that the rights that we have, the precious rights that the blacks of the 50s and 60s gave their lives for us to have and before then, if that doesn't remind you that they can wipe them away with the pen, If you don't think that they can't, talk to us or go watch our videos on, for example, Shelby County versus Holder case, where they basically gutted the Voting Rights Act. Watch our other voting rights videos where they essentially completely gutted the Voting Rights Act. Watch our other videos where we talk about how they are attacking other laws. I think eventually they're going to come at Brown versus Board of Education. Yeah, I think so. I think this 6. I think if a Brown case, I think if a segregation case went in front of this court, that they would likely side with segregation. Okay? So, Black, you're absolutely right. Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you. Observing the facts says, well said. Thank you for that. And observing the facts gave us some fire, like this is hot. Thank you so much. And congrats, I think, on the fact that we were nominated as one of the best Black law firm in the DFW area. We're talking about a place that has 8 to 10 million people. And to get that kind of recognition was big. All right. Okay. Thank you, Chloe, for mentioning that.
Of course, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so that is going to be the end of our show today. Chloe, can you close us out?
Thank you all for joining us again for the second season, episode 2 of the Defiant Lawyer Show and Podcast.
Chloe, let me interrupt you. Let me say that Chloe Corbett is, I would say, the main reason why we got that nomination. Because she is in the courthouse on almost a daily basis, winning cases, winning hearings, winning trials. Just this past week, Chloe got a huge victory in a case. It's a summary judgment motion case. Huge victory for our client. And we're not bragging on ourselves, clapping ourselves on the back, because we do all we do for our clients. And Chloe went in there and did a fabulous job and came out with the victory. Congratulations. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you, Dad. But we are a team. It is a team. It is. You'll get the Corbett experience. And so I'm so glad to be able to partner with you, to have Mom on board. So again, it's a team effort. We're just happy to be able to do this and to use what God has given us and the knowledge, and to be able to go to law school and to hold a license from the state of Texas, all of that, things that our ancestors would have never been able to dream that they were able to do.
And then practice law with your daughter. I mean, that is something. That is just so special. And like Chloe said, you come in, if we accept your case, whatever we do civil rights, we do personal injury, we do some criminal cases and some family law cases. That's it. But if we accept you in, we bring you into the family. You become a part of the Corbett family, and you're going to get that Corbett experience like Chloe said.
Woo! You will.
Woo! 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 Yes.
Yes, you're gonna get that Corbett experience.
Our motto is improving lives, impacting laws. That's what we aim to do. Improve lives and impact the law. That is the motto of Corbett and Corbett. So that's what we do. Thank you all again for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful weekend, a happy Saturday. We're going to be back next Saturday. We're going to be bigger and better. That is the slogan for 2023. Hope you all have a good one, and we will see you next time.
Whoa. I got it on something that I can't find. Wow, that sounds creepy. Anyway, you all go. Go and like. Oh boy. Go and like. Go and like it. We are bye.
I can